The massive viewing screen in the Galactic Council's emergency chamber showed nothing but destruction. Admiral Blue's four eyes widened as he watched another solar system fall to the crystalline swarm. His pale blue skin, usually glowing with a gentle light, had dimmed with stress and fear. "That's the third system this week," he said, his translator converting his melodic language into standard galactic common. Around him, representatives from 30 different species shifted uncomfortably in their gravity-adjusted seats. Some floated in special tanks, others perched on heated platforms, but all shared the same look of defeat. The crystal swarm moved like a glittering cloud through space, consuming everything in its path. It had appeared from the dark space between galaxies 3 months ago, and nothing had stopped it since. The creatures were silicon-based life forms that ate through metal, rock, and energy sources like a hungry child through candy. "Our best weapons bounce off their shells," reported General Green, a gas-based being whose swirling form showed patterns of worry. "The latest plasma cannons didn't even slow them down. They just adapted and ate the energy." Admiral Blue rubbed his secondary arms together, a habit he had when deep in thought. He remembered something from his academy days, a restricted file about a species that lived on a planet so dangerous that most council races would die within minutes of landing there. "There might be one option left," he said slowly, drawing surprised looks from his fellow council members. "But you're not going to like it." He waved one of his primary arms, and the screen changed to show a blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. "Earth," he said simply. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and frightened chirps. Earth was classified as a death world, its inhabitants marked as extremely dangerous. The humans who lived there had evolved on a planet with crushing gravity, deadly radiation levels, extreme temperature swings, and aggressive predators. They were walking disaster zones to most council species. "You can't be serious," squeaked Representative Yellow, his antennae curling in distress. Those Deathworlders. They're barely space-capable by our standards." Admiral Blue played another video. It showed human soldiers training in what the Council considered lethal conditions. They ran through rain, actual water falling from the sky, climbed mountains against savage gravity, and fought in temperatures that would freeze or burn most Council species. "Look at them," Blue said. "They treat survival on their deadly world as routine. Their bodies can repair broken bones, fight off poisons, and heal from injuries that would kill any of us. And most importantly," he paused for effect, "they have extensive experience dealing with swarm creatures on their planet." The council chamber went quiet. On the screen, a human casually drank something called hot coffee, a temperature that would melt several council members. "But they're so primitive," protested General Green. "They still use projectile weapons alongside their energy ones. They haven't even colonized their whole star system yet." "Primitive." Admiral Blue's skin pulsed with barely contained frustration. "They survived and thrived on a planet that would kill any of us in minutes. Maybe we need primitive. Everything advanced we've tried has failed." The crystal swarm chose that moment to destroy another star system. The Council watched in horror as billions of credits worth of technology and resources vanished into the crystalline mass. "We are running out of options," Admiral Blue said quietly. "Our civilizations face extinction. Perhaps it's time to ask help from those who understand extinction-level threats on a personal level. The humans face them every day just by living on their world." After 3 hours of heated debate, the Council finally voted. They would contact Earth. Admiral Blue felt his skin brighten slightly with hope. The humans were unpredictable and dangerous, yes, but right now, they needed dangerous. As he prepared the first contact message, he looked again at the human training video. A human instructor was telling jokes while teaching others how to survive in what the Council considered unsurvivable conditions. "Please," he whispered to himself, "let this crazy idea work." The message to Earth began transmitting. The fate of the galaxy now rested on the shoulders of the most feared and least understood species in known space. The Deathworlders were their last hope. Major Tom Stone was having a perfectly normal day testing new combat suits in Death Valley when the aliens arrived. The temperature was a pleasant 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius, and he had just finished his morning run across the salt flats when the sky lit up with strange lights. "Sir," his radio crackled, "you're going to want to see this." The alien ship looked like a giant bubble made of metal and light. It hovered delicately above the desert floor, creating no dust storm despite its size. Stone watched with professional interest as a ramp extended from its side, touching the ground with a gentle tap. "Maintain position," he ordered his team, who were already setting up defensive positions out of habit. "Let's see what our visitors want." 3 aliens emerged. The first was tall and blue-skinned, walking on 4 legs with 4 arms moving in perfect harmony. Behind it came 2 floating creatures that looked like swirling clouds of green and yellow gas contained in transparent bubbles. Stone noticed they were all wearing what appeared to be heavy environmental suits. He checked his wrist computer. The temperature had actually dropped to a mild 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity was a dry 2%. Perfect weather for testing, in his opinion. The blue alien spoke first, its words translated by a floating device. "Is this survivable for you?" The creature's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, showing clear concern. Stone took off his helmet and smiled. "It's a bit cool for proper testing, but it'll do. I'm Major Tom Stone, United Earth Defense Force. Welcome to Death Valley." The aliens physically recoiled when he removed his helmet. The yellow gaseous one made a sound that the translator rendered as a squeak of horror. "You're exposing yourself to the raw atmosphere." The blue alien, who introduced himself as Admiral Blue, seemed both terrified and fascinated. "Well, yeah. How else would I enjoy this beautiful day?" Stone gestured at the vast desert landscape. "Would you like to come to our base? It's air-conditioned. Might be more comfortable for you." "Air-conditioned." Admiral Blue consulted his translator. "You mean you make it even colder than this?" Stone laughed, then stopped when he realized the aliens were serious. "Tell you what, let's head inside, and you can tell me why you're here." "Something tells me this isn't a tourist visit." Inside the base's conference room, kept at what Stone considered a chilly 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 degrees Celsius, the aliens finally began to relax. Their environmental suits still whirred with effort, but at least the yellow one had stopped making distressed noises. Admiral Blue played a hologram showing the crystal swarm. Stone watched intently as entire solar systems disappeared into the glittering mass. He didn't flinch at the destruction like the aliens expected. Instead, he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "How fast do they move?" he asked, pulling out an old-fashioned notebook and pen. The aliens exchanged glances, such primitive recording tools. "Approximately 0.1 light-years per Earth day," Admiral Blue answered. "Our weapons are useless. They adapt to energy weapons, and physical weapons shatter against their crystalline structure." Stone nodded, still writing. "And they move as a group, right? Like a swarm?" "Exactly. Our best scientists have been studying their behavior, but we can't predict their movements or find a weakness." Stone looked up from his notes, a slight smile on his face. "On Earth, we have these creatures called army ants. Tiny little things, but they swarm just like this, moving as one unit, consuming everything in their path. We learned to deal with them ages ago." The aliens stared at him in shock. Admiral Blue's skin pulsed with a mix of hope and disbelief. "You have creatures like this on your on your planet?" "Oh, sure. Earth's full of swarm creatures. Ants, locusts, African killer bees." Stone paused, noticing the aliens' growing horror. "The point is, we know how to handle swarms, and I think I might have an idea about your crystal problem." He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor, making the yellow alien jump. Let me make a few calls. I think it's time we showed you why evolving on a death world isn't always a bad thing. As Stone left the room, Admiral Blue turned to his companions. Did he just compare a galaxy-destroying threat to insects? Yes, the green gaseous being replied, and he smiled while doing it. The hologram room aboard the alien flagship was twice as large as any Earth conference room Stone had ever seen. The crystal swarm floated in the air around him, a perfect 3D recreation of the threat. He walked through the hologram, studying it from every angle while the alien council members watched nervously from their environmental suits. "Play it again," Stone said, "but this time, slow it down to 1/10 speed." Admiral Blue adjusted the controls. The crystalline mass moved like glittering honey through space, consuming a red dwarf system. Stone's eyes narrowed as he watched the pattern emerge. "There," he pointed. "See how they move. They're not just a random swarm. They're following the leaders." He traced the movement with his finger. Just like army ants, the scouts go first, then the main swarm follows the chemical trail. Chemical trail. General Green swirled in his containment bubble. In space. Not chemicals exactly. Stone walked through the hologram again. But some kind of signal. "Look here." He pointed to the front of the swarm. "These bigger crystals always move first. The smaller ones follow their exact path, down to the millimeter." Admiral Blue's 4 eyes widened. We never noticed that pattern." "That's because you're looking for advanced technology," Stone smiled. "On Earth, we learned the hard way that some of the deadliest things are also the simplest. A single army ant is nothing. 1,000,000 of them. They can strip a cow to bones in hours." The yellow representative made a horrified squeaking sound at this casual mention of Earth's dangers. Stone pulled out his tablet, showing videos of army ant swarms in action. The aliens watched in fascinated horror as the tiny Earth creatures devoured everything in their path. "But how does this help us?" Admiral Blue asked. "We can't exactly use insecticide in space." "No," Stone agreed, "but we can use the same principles. Look at your weapon logs. Every time you hit them with energy weapons, they adapted, right?" The aliens nodded. "But what about physical weapons?" "They shattered against the crystal shells," General Green reported. "Completely useless." "Wrong," Stone said, pulling up the combat footage. "They weren't useless. Look what happens when the crystals shatter." He zoomed in on a piece of footage showing a missile strike. The crystals broke apart, but the aliens had dismissed this as failure. "The broken pieces stopped moving," Stone explained. "They didn't rejoin the swarm. They just floated in space, dead." The aliens stared at the footage in shock. "We never." Admiral Blue's skin pulsed with excitement. "We were so focused on destroying them completely, we didn't notice. On Earth, when dealing with army ants, disrupting their communication is key," Stone explained. "Break up the swarm, and they lose coordination. These crystals are the same, but instead of chemical trails, they're using something else, something that travels through space." He walked to the center of the hologram room. "What travels through space can carry information and affects crystalline structures." The alien scientists looked at each other. Admiral Blue spoke first. "Electromagnetic waves. But our scans showed no EM communications." "Think simpler," Stone said. "What's the most basic way crystals respond to energy?" There was a moment of silence. Then General Green's gaseous form brightened. "Vibration. Sound waves." "Bingo," Stone grinned. "Well, not sound exactly, since space is a vacuum. But mechanical waves, traveling through the crystalline structure itself. That's how they communicate. That's why energy weapons don't work. They absorb and adapt to the energy. But physical strikes shatter the communication network." Admiral Blue finished. "Like breaking a phone line." Stone nodded. "Exactly. And on Earth, we have weapons designed specifically to shatter things using mechanical waves." He pulled up designs for sonic weapons on his tablet. The aliens crowded around, their fear forgotten in their excitement. These will need to be modified for space, of course, Stone explained. But the principle is sound. Pun intended. Admiral Blue's skin was glowing brightly now. Can it really be that simple? Simple? Stone laughed. Where I come from, simple solutions are often the best ones. When something's trying to eat you, you don't need complicated. You need effective. The aliens looked at each other, then back at the human who had found hope in their darkest hour by comparing a galaxy-threatening swarm to insects. Maybe, just maybe, these Deathworlders knew what they were talking about. The alien council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Stone stood before the gathered representatives. Behind him, a massive screen showed his proposed weapon design, a modified version of Earth's sonic cannons. You want to fight a galaxy-threatening swarm with sound. Representative Yellow's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of disbelief and horror in his voice. Not exactly sound, Stone explained, pointing to the technical drawings. We'll be using focused mechanical waves. Think of it like an earthquake in space, but targeted specifically at their crystalline structure. Admiral Blue raised one of his 4 hands. But the energy requirements for such a weapon will be minimal, Stone interrupted, bringing up new calculations. That's the beauty of it. We're not trying to overpower them. We're trying to shake them apart at their weakest points, like breaking a wine glass with the right musical note. He played a video showing exactly that. A wine glass shattering from a specific sound frequency. Several alien representatives flinched at the destruction, but their eyes remained fixed on the screen. Our ships have 10 times the power requirements of your design. General Green swirled thoughtfully in his containment sphere. Are you saying we've been using too much power? Stone nodded. Sometimes the smallest push in the right place is better than a hammer to the wrong spot. These crystals, they've evolved to absorb and adapt to energy attacks, but they can't change their basic structure, their fundamental resonance frequency. He brought up a simulation showing his proposed attack plan. Small, fast ships would dart in, each equipped with the new sonic weapons. We'll hit them with precisely calculated frequencies, Stone continued. Different tones for different crystal sizes, like a deadly concert in space. He paused, noticing several aliens looking confused at the reference. Sorry, Earth metaphor. Admiral Blue studied the plans closely. This could work, but the ships would need to get very close to the swarm. The risk. I'll lead the first attack personally, Stone said firmly. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. But that's suicide, Representative Yellow squeaked. The radiation alone at that distance. Stone laughed. The radiation levels near the swarm are about the same as a sunny day in Death Valley. I'll be fine. Besides, someone needs to show your pilots it can be done. The aliens looked at each other uneasily. They had started to trust this human's ideas, but his casual attitude toward deadly conditions still unnerved them. We'll need to test it first, General Green said. Perhaps on a small scale. Already done, Stone replied, bringing up new footage. The video showed a small chamber where a piece of the crystal swarm, carefully contained, was exposed to different frequencies. At one specific tone, the crystal shattered into inert pieces. The chamber went silent. How? When did you do this? Admiral Blue asked. Last night, Stone shrugged. Couldn't sleep. Your lab guys were very helpful once I convinced them to stop treating the sample like it might jump out and eat them. Another stunned silence. You just decided to run a potentially deadly experiment because you couldn't sleep. Representative Yellow's voice hit a new high note. Well, yeah. Best time to test things is when nobody's around to say it's impossible. Stone grinned. Besides, success is often just failure with a better safety suit. Admiral Blue's skin glowed with what Stone had learned was amusement. I begin to understand why your species has survived on such a deadly world. You don't just adapt to danger. You actively seek to understand it. Hard to be scared of something once you know how it works, Stone agreed. Now, shall we start modifying your ships? According to the latest reports, we have about 3 weeks before the swarm reaches the next inhabited system. The council voted unanimously to proceed. As the representatives filed out, Admiral Blue approached Stone. "Your species is very strange," he said. "You treat deadly situations like puzzles to be solved." Stone smiled. "That's because every puzzle has a solution. Sometimes you just need to look at it from a different angle, preferably one that involves breaking things in creative ways." The plan was set. Now they just had to convince the galaxy's finest pilots to fly straight toward a swarm of space crystal death, while blasting it with what essentially amounted to very aggressive music. Stone liked those odds. After all, he'd faced worse during his morning jogs in Death Valley. The massive hangar bay of the alien flagship echoed with unusual sounds, the high-pitched whine of sonic weapons being calibrated mixed with the steady voice of Major Stone teaching alien pilots how to fly directly at danger. "The trick isn't avoiding death," Stone explained to the nervous group before him. "The trick is accepting that danger is just part of the job." The alien pilots, sitting in their various environmental suits and containment bubbles, watched as Stone walked around a holographic display of their attack formation. "Sir," one of the pilots, a crystalline being named First Light, raised its glowing appendage. "Our simulations show a 60% chance of ship damage at that range." Stone nodded. "Correct. And what's the chance of survival if we do nothing and let the swarm keep eating solar systems?" The hangar went quiet. "Exactly," Stone continued. "Sometimes the safest path is straight through danger. Now, watch this." He waved to his human team, who had been modifying a small scout ship. The ship's new additions looked crude compared to the alien technology. Earth-made sonic projectors bolted onto sleek alien metal, but when they activated it, the results were impressive. A focused beam of mechanical energy shot out, precisely calibrated to shatter crystal structures. "Beautiful," Admiral Blue said, walking into the hangar. "But the power readings are strange. It's using less energy than our food replicators." Stone grinned. "That's because we're working smarter, not harder. These crystals are tough against brute force, but hit them with just the right frequency." He snapped his fingers. "They fall apart like cheap glass." The next few hours were spent training the alien pilots. Most species would have found the conditions in the hangar difficult. The temperature fluctuated wildly as ships powered up and down, radiation leaked from test crystals, and the artificial gravity kept glitching. Stone's team worked through it all without even noticing. "How do they do it?" General Green asked Admiral Blue, watching Stone calmly fix a power coupling in what their sensors said was nearly lethal heat. "I'm beginning to think," Admiral Blue replied, "that humans don't really understand what impossible means, or they know and just don't care." Stone overheard them and laughed. "Oh, we understand impossible just fine. We just treat it as a challenge rather than a warning." He turned back to the pilots. "Now, the most important part is timing. When I give the signal, everyone hits their targets with different frequencies. Think of it like," he paused, searching for a comparison they'd understand. "Like playing music. Each ship hits a different note, but together we make one big symphony of crystal-shattering destruction." The alien pilots looked at each other nervously. Flying in formation was one thing, but coordinating a multi-frequency attack while diving straight at a deadly swarm. "I can see you're worried," Stone said. "So let me demonstrate." He walked to one of the modified ships, the smallest one. "This is my ship. I'll be flying point position." "But that's the most dangerous position." First Light protested. "The swarm will detect you first." "Exactly," Stone smiled. "Because if something goes wrong, I want it to go wrong for me first. I don't ask anyone to take risks I wouldn't take myself." That statement changed something in the hangar. The alien pilots sat straighter, their fear giving way to determination. Even First Light's crystalline form seemed to shine brighter. Admiral Blue watched in amazement as Stone continued the training. The human had done more than modify their ships. He had modified their thinking. These pilots, who once fled at the first sign of danger, were now preparing to fly straight into it. "One last thing," Stone said, closing the session. "When we launch tomorrow, remember, we're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to prove that sometimes the most primitive solution is the right one. And if anyone tells you this plan is crazy," his grin widened, "well, where I come from, crazy is just another word for innovative." As the pilots dispersed, Admiral Blue approached Stone. "Do you really think we can win?" Stone checked the readings on his sonic weapon one more time. "Admiral, on Earth we have a saying. The best way to deal with your fears is to face them head-on." He patted the ship's hull. "Tomorrow, we're going to give that swarm one hell of a concert." The fleet of modified ships hung in space like tiny stars against the black void. Through his view screen, Stone could see the crystal swarm approaching, a massive, glittering cloud that seemed to devour the very darkness around it. "Remember your training," Stone's voice crackled through the comm systems. "Don't focus on how big they are. Focus on your part of the plan." His small scout ship led the formation. Behind him, 50 alien vessels arranged themselves in attack position, their newly installed sonic weapons humming with power. "First wave, with me," Stone commanded. "Everyone else, hold position until my signal." He took a deep breath. "Let's go break some crystals." His ship shot forward, followed by 10 others. The aliens had said their ships were too delicate for such aggressive maneuvering. Stone had simply removed half the safety protocols, muttering something about how safety third was still a good position. The swarm noticed them. Countless crystal fragments turned, their surfaces glittering with deadly purpose. "Steady," Stone called, watching his instruments. "Wait for it. Wait for it." The swarm launched its first attack, a wave of crystalline projectiles hurtling toward them at incredible speed. Now, Frequency 1. 11 sonic weapons fired simultaneously. The space between ships filled with invisible waves of mechanical energy. The incoming crystal projectiles shattered into harmless dust. "It works." First Light's excited voice rang through the comms. "They're actually breaking." "Don't celebrate yet," Stone warned, banking his ship hard to avoid a larger crystal formation. "Second wave, begin your attack run." Frequency 2. More ships dove into the battle. Each group fired different sonic frequencies, targeting specific sizes of crystals. The swarm, for the first time in its existence, began to fall apart. But it wasn't giving up easily. The remaining crystals adapted, trying to change their structure to resist the sonic attacks. Stone had expected this. "They're changing frequency," Admiral Blue warned from the command ship. "Our weapons will be useless." "Wrong," Stone grinned. "They're doing exactly what we wanted." He switched to all channels. "All ships, activate random frequency modulators." The sonic weapons began shifting tones rapidly, never staying on one frequency long enough for the crystals to adapt. The swarm's attempt to change its structure only made it more vulnerable. Crystals cracked and shattered in waves of destruction. "It's working." General Green's swirling form was practically dancing in his containment bubble. "The swarm is breaking up." Stone wasn't celebrating yet. He noticed something at the swarm's center, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with energy. "That's it," he muttered. "That's the Queen." He switched to command channels. "All ships, focus fire on the large structure in the center. Maximum power." The alien pilots hesitated for just a moment. They'd never used their ships at full power. It violated dozens of safety protocols. Stone's voice cut through their doubt. "Trust me, sometimes you have to break things to fix them." 50 sonic weapons fired at once, all targeting the central crystal. Space itself seemed to vibrate with the combined energy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash of light, the central crystal shattered. Without their leader, the remaining swarm crystals began to break apart on their own. "All ships, clear the area." Stone ordered, the chain reactions starting. They watched from a safe distance as the mighty swarm that had terrorized the galaxy dissolved into harmless crystal dust. In the silence that followed, Admiral Blue's voice came through the comms. "Major Stone, you did it. You actually did it." Stone looked at the field of glittering debris that had once been an unstoppable force of destruction. "No, Admiral, we did it. Your pilots flew straight into death without flinching. That's not just human courage. That's universal courage." First Light's crystalline ship moved alongside Stone's. "We learned from you, Major. You showed us that sometimes the most dangerous path is the only path." Stone smiled. "Well, if you like that lesson, wait until I tell you about how we handle other Earth problems. Ever heard of mosquitoes?" The collective groan from the alien pilots made him laugh. They had learned to face danger, but they still weren't quite ready for all of Earth's horrors. As the fleet regrouped, Stone made a mental note to not mention Australia. Some things were better left for another day. The Galactic Council chamber looked very different from the first time Stone had entered it. Gone were the nervous whispers and fearful glances. Instead, representatives from every spacefaring race had gathered to celebrate their victory. Even the environmental suits seemed less rigid, as if their wearers had finally learned to relax a little. Stone stood before them in his regular Earth military uniform. No environmental protection needed. The temperature in the chamber was still kept uncomfortably cold for him. But after the battle, such minor discomforts barely registered. Admiral Blue approached the central platform, his skin glowing with pride. "The Galactic Council has gathered today to honor not just a victory, but a complete change in how we view the universe." He gestured toward Stone. "We called the humans Deathworlders, a primitive species too dangerous to interact with. We were wrong." Stone tried not to smile as several representatives nodded in agreement. It was hard to maintain a serious expression when Representative Yellow was literally glowing with excitement in his containment bubble. "Major Stone," Admiral Blue continued, "your solution to the crystal swarm threat wasn't just effective. It was enlightening. You showed us that sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, and that what we considered primitive might actually be practical wisdom earned through survival." General Green floated forward. "Our scientists have studied the remaining crystal fragments. The swarm's communication system was so basic that we overlooked it precisely because we were looking for something more complex. We nearly lost the galaxy because we forgot that nature often finds the simplest path." Stone finally spoke up. "On Earth, we have a saying. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Every dangerous thing on our planet taught us something. We didn't just survive our death world. We learned from it." First Light, now promoted to fleet commander, moved forward. Its crystalline form sparkled under the chamber lights. "The pilot corps has officially adopted what we're calling the Stone Doctrine. Sometimes you have to fly straight at the problem." This brought chuckles from the assembly. Stone had learned that alien humor was different from human humor, but near-death experiences seemed to be a universal icebreaker. Admiral Blue raised all four hands for silence. "In recognition of humanity's contribution to galactic survival, the Council has voted. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities thereof." The chamber erupted in cheers, or their species equivalent of cheers. Stone heard everything from crystalline, chiming to gaseous whooshing. Additionally, Admiral Blue continued, "We request permission to establish an exchange program. We wish to learn more about how humans think, how you solve problems, and," he paused dramatically, "how you manage to live on a planet that tries to kill you in so many creative ways." Stone couldn't help laughing at that. "Admiral, I think we can arrange something. Though maybe we start with the mild parts of Earth. No need to show them Australia just yet." After the ceremony, Stone stood by a viewing window, looking out at the stars. Admiral Blue joined him. "You know," the Admiral said, "when we first contacted Earth, We thought we were desperately reaching out to barbarians as a last resort. Stone nodded. And now? Now we understand that what we saw as primitive was actually practical. Your species doesn't just survive. You learn, adapt, and then teach others to do the same. Admiral Blue's skin pulsed with colors that indicated deep thought. Though I must ask, do you really have tiny creatures called mosquitoes that drink blood through a needle-like mouth? Oh, that's nothing. Stone grinned. Wait until you hear about honey badgers. As Admiral Blue's skin changed to a worried pale blue, Stone looked back at the stars. The galaxy was safer now, not because of advanced technology or complex solutions, but because someone had finally thought to look at a problem the simple way. Sometimes, he reflected, you needed a Deathworlder's perspective to truly appreciate life. After all, what was a galaxy-threatening crystal swarm compared to an average Tuesday in Australia? The future looked bright. And if any more threats appeared, well, Earth had plenty more survival lessons to share.